So I've been seeing a lot of posts lately about people talking about when they have an interview for a job. One of the tips that they undoubtedly always mention is to have a firm and solid handshake. Well, it brought up something that I just would like to bring awareness to. There are some people that have disabilities in which they are unable to do a firm handshake. Or they might be hurt or injured if someone else attempts to give them a firm handshake. Or maybe they've had rotator cuff surgery and they have an unstable shoulder and or grip. Perhaps that person has arthritis and would be in pain if someone grasped their hands and fingers tightly in a handshake. I would like to bring some awareness to the population, that this is just an old way of thinking and that it may not be benefiting, a majority of people. I do not believe that one's handshake is a direct indicator of their capability, their confidence, or their success ratio for a job. I believe that people, in general should be more cognizant of the fact that there are circumstances, there are preferences and or beliefs which may prevent individuals from participating in a firm handshake or in handshakes in general. Another example would be religious preference or cultural standards and expectations. In these cases, certain individuals may be prevented or discouraged from shaking the hand of others. For example, maybe females would be restricted from touching non-family member males, thus preventing them from shaking an interviewer's hand. This is not a sign of weakness, lack of confidence, or disrespect. And this should not prevent the candidate from being considered in the same regard as a person who did reach out to shake the interviewer's hand. It's just something I believe we should all be rethinking. We should all be putting this on our radar. Maybe it's time to start moving away from the idea of making this a standard expected practice. We shouldn't penalize people from being against the old norm. I know what you're all thinking. Well, what are we supposed to do when we first meet or when the interview's done? It's going to be so awkward. Okay, so what? We can start a new status quo and we can encourage people to be more aware of other people's body language. We can try to learn and read where the other person's coming from and try to take cues from them as to whether or not they are trying to shake our hand. So if someone reaches for your hand to shake, and here are two ways that you can combat it in an eloquent way. And I encourage the person who was trying to shake their hand to take it very nicely too and be respectful and maybe mimic what they do. So one alternative to handshaking would be to put your right hand over your heart, slightly bow, and say your thanks and closing remarks. You could also, another way, you could put both of your hands together like in prayer, bring it close to your chest and slightly bow and say your thanks or closing remarks. Can y'all think of some other ways or any other tips that can be an alternative to handshaking?